Hello, Madam Ose. Someone come who African Professor One, Mohamed spokesperson, African Professor One, Nekasabo, Madran subscribe, share, ne hit notification bell, anytime be a me upload video. No, they say you be among the first to get it. You one more time, we African Professor One, Mohamed spokesperson, my chief linguist, my chairman, will be African Professor One, Nekasan, Madran subscribe, and share, then spreading message together. Until once again, African Professor One Kasa Nene, come on, Pessimindi no. To be a simple, and I can say simple and TTTT. Matudi me say, stop talking about African unity because we don't have it in Africa. There's no African unity. It's a myth. So let's stop talking about it. Let's stop tickling ourselves. There's some such thing as African unity and as African union. It doesn't exist. It just exists in theory, in paper. It doesn't really exist in practical form. I think command person de me say, and then to de me say, I didn't know there be African, sorry, and African unity. There'll be African unite, African unity. Where's African unity? Where is African unity? Me come in the akwakusi. Na sia ba me more specific example na sia ni enche krabe for 3 days ni. And Aliko Dangote. So the richest man in Africa, and I said if not the richest black man in the whole world. So far, I don't know. I'm talking about black men, the richest black man probably in the whole wide world, black man in the whole wide world. I would say Aliko Dangote. It's in Africa, it's in the whole world, the whole Africa. He's the richest black man. But anyway, CEO conference, CEO forum be Kigali, Rwanda. There 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, wherever it is, but not within a week. And we'll make a comment say, as a businessman in Africa, he doesn't have time to any time or person African country be African countries be 35 or kunyina when you have visa to go to that country. Why? This is why I'm talking about African unity. We talk about African unity. African for sorry and African unity. Abrofono and MAN come and Abrofono disuniting to Abrofono. And the cause 7 country be like Sebia, Togo and Nasibia, Kenya, Segana Niko Kenya, and Nasibia, we're all, English speaking country. So we call a Saudi visa, and I say we call any other African, many of the African countries, Abrofono and the share Sambrano, and my African leaders, and that's those African countries. Na yen na make us the biano, yeah, Africans, mostly Africans, most of us, we don't want to face the truth. We don't want to tell the truth. Always we make it seem say, your problems now you're facing, they confront to African. Somehow, a brofubit in China, the biano, a kamukono, na Africa, the biano near Tisumu, near Ho Chile, near Bre, near leaders, no more, almost scanning in our pocket is scanning in to their private account. Somehow, the BR will blame somebody else apart from Yang. So, we don't want to conduct any self-introspective BR on earth. The BR will be there. To me, can't win you know, say, Dangote, what you African, we businessman, everybody knows. The richest, senior the whole world, he's the richest man in Africa. Or say, or core countries be by 35 countries within Africa, 54 countries now within African countries, or quite just with your visa. Why? Why at this point in time, this time and age, I say you need free movement of people, goods and services, Africa. So you see a percent, you near prepare, see a percent, your continent, you team competing with other continent, North America, only Asian, the countries now. Argentina up to now, European countries up to now. Africa, we don't have anything in place. African Union. Now, first name Organization of African Unity, no for African Union in the 60s, no more established here, just to try to, African emancipation, liberation of Africa, and then the total liberation of Africa and African unity. They are creating the African Union and Kabumi, say union near the why don't we allow? Say lift all these barriers, artificial barriers near that So geographical and these are border barriers. Now Africa any free movement of people across borders. Why? Because we don't trust. We have that mutual mistrust. Many of our African countries, they don't trust each other. That is the essence of that. Barriers, some barriers, who call other countries and just what could give visa. If you also do what you say would be. Within a year, you have to get a visa. Why do we have to have that? Because you call European countries now. Let me tell you this: European countries call all the members of the European Union, EU, all those countries, you don't need a visa to go anywhere. See, I'm in Mukasai. We want to for baby or vacation in France, Spain, Italy. American passport. They don't need a visa, they just go to Europe straight up. Me say this is here because me passport I go Europe, which is here, and no say American passport, no say why? In the European Union countries, but 27 years, once we are European country member, you live in any of the European country Union, European Union, you can just move, go anywhere. You know, so better trim, now could talk. That's it. I think in Africa, it means implement our policies. Let me see, Dangote, on one they can say, it's a barrier to free trade and the movement of people because some person country develop at this stage, social media age, globalization, the word of globalization. We have to have free, some lower barriers, artificial barriers, and hinder free movement of goods and services within Africa sub-region. Near Tiho, and you saw the African unity, African unite, African emancipation, African this, but when it comes to practicals, pragmatism, idea, a bit show practical in the form. We don't want to do Debia Brofakasi and Yachro and Yakasa. We don't want to implement Dangote. He went there, CEO, African CEO conference, and that's African CEO forum in Kigali. He complained about the fact that said, all countries should be a person called fast be a business, meeting be another business transaction, and that's a person called business from one country, Nigeria to another country, and so called visa, and so then the passport call visa. Why? Why don't you as an African, citizen, country, a member of African Union, said the European Union, why can't we do that? I don't think Africa be beyond anymore, but for each other. We are near blame one and the Western countries. Obi yawa, they be a cousin. Obi person bring you down on him, say way, and the pressure of bring you down. And did you sit there for that person to keep on doing bringing you down? Why don't you find a way to circumvent and also go around that, support against you? Let there be a so be na obi abowahwe obi my sorry we see nipa no obo me hwe no wan pagame an sorry men sorry because on abo me hwe ebi ne no abrofo na ye say the bia ye bremu abrofo enti abrofo ne kase mo magi loan mo kogi loan na mo ba be chedi na mo de ye campaign na mo de tuatua ma nkofo akase to talk cast ma mo guess mo ne enti abrofo ne kase mo nye saade no abrofo ne say what European Union, African Union, eti kwamba faswa, mubetimi ensure free goods and services and there's a movement from one country, people from movement from one country to another within Africa sub-region. Why is that? And to be say, African and command person didn't say, let's stop talking about African unity, African unity, because it doesn't exist in anywhere. I don't know if in our lifetime it will ever exist because since 1960s countries, many of the African countries, in your independence day, we kept talking about African Union, African unity, independent of Africa. Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up with the total liberation of Africa. Any question, the Cambrofuya, Cassia, theories, questions, Brofi, Casa, the Brofami, who said, Unkwana. Yako school, degrees in money daddy, you bet my training packet muscle. And so when it comes to say pragmatism, some practical, say realities of life, and I say how to manage country in the practical terms, you will like that. Now, I say, Argentina up to this point, you per se, you develop Africa, trade, free movement of goods and services near the your money easier. Argentina to me remove all the barriers and my trade in movement from countries to other part is so smoother. Aliko Dangote will make a complaint by say, Timbia or pursue to quiet, yes, or visa. Within African country, European unions, European countries, they don't do that. Why? Why do we do that? America, who free here, Canada, straight up, you don't need visa. And the money may be brave, and so African BTS, we are near St. Guanuna, a profono, Tim Command person in the answer. Mr. Mammy, Kasa Yaka for African unity, African Union, Africa, because it doesn't exist. Many of these African leaders in African countries, they don't trust each other. It's a fact. Mumusa Dangote, Oko asked Dangote, he said it. So, say, maybe he didn't say, he said specifically, say, Africa, you need unity near that. But the first said, want to be moving from one country to another country without a visa, no? Speaks a lot. Speak volumes about the fact that say, there's no unity, there's no unity. True unity among African countries. And Francophone countries, Anglophone countries, we all don't get along. Yeah, connects are qua. That's a fact. You're going no fit. So if you have some to Amreso and you African unity, it doesn't exist because it can exist there. I didn't think up to this time. You need to put things in place. Now, we'll move from one country to another. Many of these African countries, they require visa before you can visit country. Why is that? Why is that? Country in your country mobile instability, corruption, any other dinner book, and so quiet your uncle. This is what visa. Why? Mr. Musa Dangote, he said it. At the CEO, African CEO Forum. What's it? Or could be a business within Africa. This or the passport called visa. Why? Nessa, red tapeism, and they go through all bureaucratic entanglements near that. Why? And hinder trading, hinder business, hinder smooth, trading among African regions, African countries. And to come up person may say, Africa, we're not serious. Let's stop talking about African unity and African unity because it doesn't exist. So as it still got up to this point, from moving from one country to another, you don't need a visa to do that. A lot of these African countries require a visa before you visit their country. African unity, it doesn't exist anywhere. It's no credit or one country. Come on, person, one more time. We African professor, subscribe, share with friends and family, and I'll talk to you another time. Have a great day. Bye.